the deep dive. Today we're taking a really deep plunge into some source material. It offers a truly audacious reinterpretation of history, cosmology, and, well, even the land right here in the Americas.
Yeah, it's quite something. We're looking at excerpts from Moorish Light, the Atlantean legacy in the Americas.
And the core idea this source puts forward is pretty extraordinary.
It really is. Basically, the idea that Atlantis wasn't just wiped out in some cataclysm,
Right.
but that it underwent this profound transformation. And its essence, its energy and knowledge, it lives on. Especially, it says, anchored right here in the Americas.
So carried forward by a lineage the source calls, broadly, Moors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So our job today is to really unpack this specific, pretty unique claim, and we're sticking only to the information given in these excerpts.
Got it. So yeah, get ready. Because we're going to explore how this source thinks cosmic cycles run civilizations. Look into Atlantis' peak and its very unusual fall. Figure out who these Moors are in this specific context.
Right.
And maybe the most mind-bending part, how the Americas are presented as like the literal physical body of Atlantis.
It's definitely a lens that completely reframes things.
Yeah.
History, geology, ancient cultures, maybe even consciousness itself. It asks you to question quite a lot.
Okay, let's dive in then. So where does this huge story begin? According to the source, it seems like it starts out there
Yeah.
in the cosmos
Yeah.
with a cosmic clock.
That's absolutely the foundation laid out here, yeah. The main concept is the precession of the equinoxes. Now, astronomers know this. It's Earth's slow wobble on its axis. Think of a spinning top, right?
Right.
But a bit off kilter.
Okay.
And this wobble takes a huge amount of time to complete one cycle. It makes the sun's position against the stars at the equinoxes shift very slowly over thousands and thousands of years.
And that massive cycle, that's the great year.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The source defines it as roughly 26,000 years. That's the full wobble. And as the equinox point moves through the zodiac constellations, it marks different ages, Pisces, Aquarius, which we're supposedly entering,
Right.
and so on. But the really fascinating claim here from the source is that each age has its own distinct energy signature, and this profoundly affects human consciousness and conditions on Earth.
Wow. But this source takes this even further, doesn't it? It brings in Alcyone and the Pleiades.
Yes, this is where it gets really interesting, moving into more, let's say, esoteric territory. The source puts forward the idea that our entire solar system, it might not just be orbiting the galactic center.
Okay.
It might also be in this huge, slow orbit around Alcyone. That's the brightest star in the Pleiades cluster. And this grand orbit, the source suggests, also takes around 26,000 years. And this provides the actual sort of physical mechanism behind the energy shifts of the Great Year. It's the cosmic neighborhood in this view that defines the ages.
Okay, hold on. Unpack that connection for me. How does the source link this cosmic timing, Alcyone, the Great Year, directly to Atlantis?
Well, the claim is the Atlanteans have this incredibly deep understanding of the cosmic clock. It wasn't just observation for them.
Right.
They integrated this cyclical knowledge into their whole civilization, daily life, spiritual practices, and crucially, their architecture and technology.
Okay.
Their peak, their golden age, and then their decline. It's all presented as being directly tied to their position in this big 26,000-year orbit around Alcyone. The source suggests, being closer or more aligned meant benevolent vibrations, higher consciousness.
Higher consciousness.
While moving away led to denser, more material times.
So for them, this wasn't just abstract stargazing. It was like the fundamental pulse, the engine driving their evolution and destiny.
That's exactly the picture this source paints. It was the rhythm of their reality.
Which brings us to that peak, the Atlantean zenith. The source puts its golden age around the age of Leo, maybe 11,000 BCE. What was it like then, according to this text?
Oh, it's described as just unprecedented harmony. Technological marvels, but rooted in spiritual understanding. Deep attunement.
Harmony.
And again, the source ties this prosperity back to that idea of being aligned with Alcyone's positive energy. Their progress wasn't about control or exploitation like we might think of technology now. It was about understanding and working with natural and cosmic energies.
And the technology sounds, well, really different, based on energy itself.
It does. The source talks a lot about sophisticated crystal energy systems. The idea is they use these huge crystal grids placed really carefully.
Strategically.
Yeah, strategically, to tap into Earth's natural energy flows, leylies, people call them, and even energy from the atmosphere, providing clean, limitless power for everyone.
Wow. Limitless power.
And their governance wasn't based on, laws and force. It was telepathic communion. Leaders were like conduits for divine wisdom, guiding the whole society through this unified consciousness.
And it wasn't just about buildings. They actually worked with the Earth's energy field.
Absolutely central to their culture, according to the source. They were meticulous stewards of the planetary grid. They kept it balanced using sacred geometry.
Sacred geometry.
Yeah, and not just in temples. It was coded into how they farmed, into massive earthworks, the layout of communities. The source even mentions dimensional architecture.
Dimensional architecture. What's that?
Buildings designed not just to stand up, but as resonant forms, to harmonize with specific frequencies. The source suggests this could even, help with things like interdimensional travel or communication.
Okay, that's pretty out there.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where the source makes a claim that really shifts things, especially for us here in the Americas. It says these continents weren't just like little Atlantean outposts.
This is maybe one of the most audacious claims in the text, yeah? It insists the Americas weren't peripheral at all. They were integral, primary subcontinents of Atlantis itself.
Primary.
Yes, the Andes, the Appalachians, Mesoamerica, these were central strongholds, vital spiritual centers, hubs of advanced life. This is where major Atlantean complexes were supposedly located. Crystal ones, ceremonial, agricultural, all part of the global network.
So the focus was living with the planet, and this was literally built into the land itself.
Exactly. Spiritual stewardship was everything. Sacred geometry wasn't just decoration, it was consciously encoded into the land. Huge earthworks, megaliths, how towns were placed all aligned with cosmic cycles. So the source presents the Americas, in this view, as the living body of Atlantis, infused with its energy, its knowledge, its original harmony with nature and the cosmos. It's a powerful image, isn't it? The land itself as a library of ancient wisdom.
That perspective really is transformative. But, okay, this golden age didn't last forever, according to the source.
No. And that brings us to the decline. The source describes it as a gradual shift, as that cosmic clock, the precession, kept ticking.
Moving away from El Sino's influence.
Exactly, moving the solar system away from those supposed benevolent vibes. Atlantis entered its silver, then bronze phases. The source depicts it as a slow slide in consciousness, away from spiritual unity towards materialism, ego, wanting power, domination.
A turn away from the law of one.
Right. That emphasized harmony. Towards self-interest, division. The source mentions factions, like the Sons of Belial versus the Law of One adherents.
And this internal shift,
Yeah.
it led to them misusing their amazing knowledge.
Precisely. This decline is marked by a kind of spiritual arrogance, you could say. The source claims they started dangerous genetic experiments, not for good, but for control, creating subservient beings.
Wow.
They're said to have misused their understanding of natural forces, trying to manipulate weather, even tearing holes, like unstable dimensional rifts for selfish reasons. And this severely destabilized the planet's energy field.
So the famous fall of Atlantis,
Yeah.
it wasn't just a big earthquake or flood.
According to this source, no. The spiritual corruption, that was the real fall. A metaphysical collapse, an internal breakdown that came first.
Oh, okay.
And that eventually manifested as physical catastrophe. The collective imbalance, the discord, it drew forth cataclysms. Not one sudden sinking, the source says, but a series of devastating floods, earthquakes, massive tectonic reshaping. It gradually transformed and submerged parts of the landmass.
Leading to a kind of dual fate for the civilization.
Yes, exactly. A duality. One part is said to have gone into hiding, forming inner Atlantis secret realms, maybe deep underground, maybe interdimensional, keeping the pure knowledge safe.
Okay.
The other part, outer Atlantis, was physically transformed, dispersed. Its landmasses reshaped into what we now call North and South America. The fall is framed as an energetic transmigration. The Americas became the main physical remnant, carrying the scars, yes, but also the encrypted energetic memories of that golden age.
So who survived all this? Who carried this incredible legacy forward, according to the source? It introduces this idea of the Moors.
Right, and this is where the source uses more in a really specific, much broader way than usual. It's not just North African Berbers.
Not the historical definition we usually think of.
Not at all. Here it means a kind of global family of Atlantean descendants, specifically identified as dark-skinned keepers of the ancient knowledge, sacred geometry, celestial timing, the original language. They're presented as the true inheritors, the survivors who carried the essential spiritual codes, the blueprints, from the Atlantean tradition.
And the source traces them spreading out from these transformed American continents.
Exactly. It says they moved out mainly in two directions after the big changes. Westward, within the Americas, they integrated with and deeply influenced cultures already here or just emerging.
Like who?
Groups like the Olmecs in Mesoamerica, the really advanced mound builders across North America, ancient communities in the Amazon. These indigenous mystery cultures, the Toltecs, the Mississippians, Tiwanaku, they're presented not as separate but as direct inheritors, continuations of this Atlantean knowledge stream.
Okay, direct inheritors.
Yeah.
And the other direction, eastward, across the Atlantic.
Yeah, a major group is said to have journeyed over the ocean to Africa and Europe. The source claims they were key in the pre-dynastic rise of Kemet ancient Egypt.
Really? Egypt.
Bringing advanced knowledge of engineering, astronomy, spiritual science. Their influence is also linked, the source says, to the Dogon people's deep knowledge of Sirius and the amazing seafaring skills of the ancient Maori people. These Moors, in this big definition, seeded infrastructure, set up hidden mystery schools, reactivated energy grids on both sides of the ocean, maintaining this secret network of ancient wisdom.
And the source makes a distinction within this broad Moor category.
It does. It talks about inherent Moors, those with a direct bloodline, a spiritual code link to the unbroken Atlantean lineage, people carrying the essence intrinsically, and then apparent Moors, those who, maybe through history, diaspora, cultural adoption, carried the cultural memory, the symbols, the physical markers, even if the direct genetic line isn't as clear. But the key point the source makes is both are seen as vital custodians of this ancient Atlantean Moorish legacy.
Which brings us back to that really mind-bending idea, the Americas as the actual body of transformed Atlantis. Let's get into that a bit more. How does the source map this onto the geography we know?
It's a really powerful concept the source emphasizes again and again. It presents the American continents not just as land formed by geology, but as the living, physical matrix of that transformed Atlantean civilization. Every major geographical feature is described as corresponding to, like, a vital organ or a major energy meridian of the original body.
Can you give some specific examples from the source that might help visualize it?
Absolutely. So the source looks at the Andes Mountains in South America.
Okay, the Andes.
And sees them as the Atlantean spinal column, a great energetic axis running down the continent, holding compressed memory in its peaks and valleys.
Wow.
Then the huge Amazon basin that's presented as the living circulatory system. Its incredible river network is like a grid distributing life force and information through the body.
The circulatory system. Okay. What about North America?
In North America, the massive Mississippi River system that functions as the central energy meridian, flowing right through the heartland, connecting ancient sites along its path, carrying that pre-flood legacy.
The central meridian.
And the ancient Appalachian Mountains, they're seen as memory keepers, preserving deep geological and spiritual archives, like libraries in stone.
And what about all those famous sacred sites scattered across the Americas? How do they fit in?
The source describes places like Serchant Mound in Ohio, Chaco Canyon in New Mexico, Machu Picchu in Peru, Teotihuacan in Mexico, not just as old ruins,
right,
but as powerful energy nodes. Nodal points deliberately designed using that precessional knowledge we talked about earlier, they're presented as conscious remnants of the global Atlantean energy system.
So not primitive at all.
Definitely not primitive in this view. Sophisticated instruments, really. Silent witnesses to the continuity of Atlantean consciousness embedded right there in the landscape. They're seen at still active points on the transformed body of Atlantis.
That completely changes how you might look at a map or visit one of those places, doesn't it?
It offers a radically different story for the land itself.
Yeah, and according to the source, this isn't just ancient history buried deep. This whole cycle is coming back around, bringing us to now, the Age of Aquarius.
Yes, the source positions right now entering the Age of Aquarius as incredibly significant. Astrologically, it's opposite the Age of Leo. That was the Atlantean peak, remember?
Opposite, okay.
So in the cyclical view, that opposition signals a powerful return, a reawakening. The claim is that the inner technology, the ancient templates of Atlantis, are stirring again, within collective consciousness and within the Earth's own energy grid.
How does that show up? How does this reawakening manifest? According to the source, what does it look like?
The source describes it happening in tangible ways, people having really vivid dreams that feel like accessing old, almost genetic memories, certain sound frequencies or musical traditions that seem to be unlocking forgotten knowledge archives. The global resurgence we see in reclaiming sacred names, ancestral languages, ancient symbols, these are presented as reactivating dormant energetic codes. In people and in the planet itself, it's framed as this powerful, unfolding remembrance, planetary and human.
And the role of the Moors, as this source defines them, right now, in this moment.
According to the source, they are uniquely positioned right at the forefront of this reemergence because they carry the cultural, genetic, spiritual inheritance of that Atlantean wisdom. They're described as actively reactivating the dormant grid, basically helping to unlock these ancient energies and knowledge templates.
Yeah.
Through their conscious engagement with ancestral principles with these practices.
Can you give any examples the source mentions?
Yeah, it points to things like the renewed global interest in sacred geometry. You see it in art, design, the reclaiming of ancestral languages and traditions by different groups worldwide, the power people find in specific musical traditions that are said to resonate with these ancient frequencies, and just the increasing global consciousness around harmony, unity, ecological stewardship, all seen as echoes, direct influences of this returning Atlantean template.
Okay.
The source really suggests that recognizing and honoring the contributions of these ancient Moorish inheritors is crucial for navigating this Aquarian age successfully, for manifesting its potential.
So the idea is the veil hiding the America's identity as transformed Atlantis. It's thinning now.
That's the powerful concluding thought in this part of the source, yeah. It suggests that what conventional history thought was lost, it wasn't destroyed, it was just transmuted, changed form, and patiently waiting for its cyclical return to prominence as the cosmic clock, guided by Alcyone's influence, brings us into this new age.
It definitely forces you to look at history, geography, maybe even yourself, through a completely different lens.
It absolutely does. So just to kind of distill the core claims from this really fascinating source material.
Yeah, let's recap.
Atlantis wasn't obliterated, it transformed. Its physical body reshaped into the Americas. The timing of the precession, influenced by that proposed orbit around Alcemorni, governed its rise, its specific kind of fall, and is now driving its cyclical return.
Okay.
And the Moorish inheritance, in this source's very expansive definition, is the key lineage, carrying the legacy forward and now central to its reemergence.
And that central idea of the Americas, of the physical body of this transformed Atlantis, holding its energy, its memory, that's really the anchor, isn't it?
It is the boldest claim, absolutely. And why should you, the listener, care about this? Well, this perspective isn't just some alternative history theory. It fundamentally challenges how we understand the connection between, stars and planets, the Earth itself, ancient cultures, and even the potential for human consciousness to remember things way beyond our individual lives.
It suggests a hidden, maybe epic, story encoded in the land you live on, especially if you're in the Americas, woven into history itself.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder if the ancient past is ever really past. Or if it just waits for the right cosmic timing, the right energy, the right consciousness to be remembered. The source leaves us with this really provocative thought. What if the American continents are the living, breathing remnant of Atlantis, pulsing with ancient energy and knowledge? What does that perspective imply about the history you thought you knew? About the potential of human consciousness, and about the very ground beneath your feet? Something to ponder.